Live. Hello and welcome to the Social Recruiting Show. I'm Katrina Collier. I'm, of course, author of The Robot-Proof Recruiter and a speaker and facilitator. I'm joined by my talented talent acquisition professional co-host, Mr. Glenn Martin. Hey, Glenn.
Hola.
And today we are super excited to be talking to Emma Freivogel about her mission that she's on. We will come back to that in a second, though. Of course, we wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for Enterprise alumni. So thank you very much for keeping us here for another week. Emma, welcome back to the Social Recruiting Show, because of course we had you here just into the new year when people were still, I don't know, recovering from Christmas. Which
Thank you
also
for
seems
having
like
me.
3 years ago.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Well, yeah. I was waiting.
Glenn's going to ask you a question.
I was waiting for the pause, actually, so you could ask us how we were. But yeah, okay, we've done that now. So.
It got a little bit awkward. I thought I might need to break that silence somehow.
Yeah. Well, I usually ask everybody how they got into recruitment, but it's slightly different for you, to be fair, Em, because you didn't really start with the intention to get into recruitment. And
certainly not.
I think it'd be useful just for you to just kind of recap, basically a short bit about everything pre-radical, and then what radical is, what Radical Recruit does.
I actually did almost a whole year managing the Perth branch of Drake Maddox. They're an international brand. I had this moment of like, I must change everything in my life. So I quit my cushy job, gave away all my worldly possessions, somehow managed to convince my best friend to do the same. And then we packed up her little beep and drove up the guts of Australia from Melbourne to Perth. And I applied for this support worker role at Drake Maddox. And the woman called me back and said, "You haven't got that job, but we'd like you to manage the Perth division." And I did 10 months of that. And I was like, I'm never doing recruitment again, because it was awful, absolutely awful. But before that, and after my very short stint in proper recruitment, I managed and developed services for people who experience disadvantage. So I started my career in disability services, and I moved into sort of accommodation settings, worked with people with drug and alcohol related brain injury, went back to disability, came over to where we are now, London, about 8 years ago.
Did you move to London? All right, yeah.
8 years ago in March, yeah. And did some management of community services for housing associations and all sorts of other things with humans. And I was working, before I founded Radical Recruit, I was a chief operating officer for an organisation called Working Chance, and their remit was to support women coming out of the prison system into jobs that they love, so that they could become sort of better citizens, whatever that looks like, and reintegrate into society and reestablish themselves in the family unit. And I was there for just shy of 2 years before they got rid of me. And I had the privilege and the honour to, albeit in a very small way.
Were you let go?
I was.
You were let go.
I was let go. Yeah. I was. I stupidly admitted my plan to move on and set up shop of my own, and they got me a breach of contract, which is quite ironic because they didn't ever make any money. They're a charity, and we were all sort of in it for the same reasons, to support people. Well, let's not go there. I finally recovered from that. I'm over it. So I was there for just shy of 2 years, and I supported in a very small way over 400 women coming out of prison and find jobs. And I was talking at this conference, the Reward Gateway NX Summit, which you would know, Katrina. Well, you both probably know. They're fantastic, best conference I've ever been to, really. And it was themed HR Rebels, and I was invited to talk on a panel with my then candidate Chanel, and the head of people at Honest Burgers, and the discussion centered around what was possible when the third sector and the business community unite in common purpose. And we were telling the story of my candidate Chanel, who when I first joined the business, I was tasked with the job of developing her CV. She was sort of 2 weeks away from being released when I met her, and we had 20 minutes to talk about Chanel and what she had done, which was very little in the way of work, and what she wanted to do, what she's good at, and all that sort of stuff. And so I had 20 minutes, and I learned that she had founded a bakery within HMP Downview, which is a women's prison in Surrey. And she got it to the point where she had 2 people working for her, lifers, who she trained, and they were catering events for the governor inside and outside of the prison. And I mean, to do anything beyond the usual regime, to get anything sort of approved means you're pretty savvy, and you're a great networker probably. And the thing that was really obvious about Chanel was she turned a corner. She didn't want to go back to her old lifestyle. And she was good at baking and cooking, and wanted to go pursue a career in food. So I wrote, totally flagged a CV for her, because I mean, what can you know about a person in 20 minutes? And we sent the CV to Honest Burgers, and one of their team came and met Chanel at the prison, and she fed that person a piece of her carrot cake. And it was the best goddamn carrot cake he'd ever eaten, and she got the job. So I think probably the time I spent on her CV was wasted. Anyway, so we're telling this story, and Chanel's talking to a room of like 100 people she doesn't know, who are all professionals in talent acquisition, a hiring manager, all that sort of stuff. And she really bravely and courageously told the story of her life, from care at a very young age to prison, which she said was the only place she'd ever felt safe, and then into the world of work. And she really advocated for people who had made mistakes, but desperately wanted to sort of regain control of their futures and make better lives for themselves. And she talked about, the limited opportunities that people like her are born with. She was one of 16 siblings, Black woman. Her father was involved in crime. It was a generational poverty in the West Midlands. The odds were stacked up against her from the very beginning. And I finished the event, and I was absolutely buzzing. I was like, bloody hell, that was good. Do you know what I mean? She spoke so eloquently, and we didn't prep or anything. It was all authentic, really raw, genuine stuff. And I sort of realized that, like, the people in the room were really she was warmly received by the people in the room. And there seemed to be a sort of an authentic appetite for what we were doing, and that it was more than just ticking a diversity, equality, inclusion box for some of the people we spoke to during and after the discussion. So I went to the pub and I ordered a big glass of red wine. I scribbled down all my thoughts, and I'm not one for sort of self-reflection, but on this occasion I felt the need to. And sort of it was at that point I was like, I need to be doing more with my time and my skills. Like, this charity life is not for me. I felt really boxed in, and I just thought, if something like this works for someone like Chanel, who really shouldn't have been alive, much less sort of thriving. At that point she was training to become a head chef, so she'd actually progressed her career. She hadn't reoffended for the first time in her life, and she was a part of a community who really cared about her and made her feel valued. So that was sort of how Radical was born.
So let's come up to now, because today the topic is recruiting people with the experience of homelessness isn't scary. We're doing a little bit of a Halloween thing there, just smidge. Yes. However, you're now two years on, isn't it? Didn't you just have your second birthday?
No, 1 year. So
birthday?
we're in month 13. It feels like we've been going forever. So we're in month 13
with Halloween. That's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the project that you're working on at the moment? Because it's not just ex-offenders that you help, isn't it? It's people who've had experience of homelessness or the care system.
Yeah, so we work with anyone who's sort of underrepresented in the labour market. So that could be young people not in employment, education or training. It could be people with disabilities, people in recovery, people from the BIPOC community, really anyone who struggles to get a foot in the door, or who is underrepresented in the labour force. Labour force? Yeah, that sounds right. Recently we've been involved in a really exciting project. I think just after lockdown started, I got a very frantic email from a colleague at St Mungo's explaining that they'd been tasked with this enormous job of moving thousands of people who were rough sleeping at the start of the pandemic into off the streets and into accommodation so they could self-isolate safely.
Mm-hmm.
And part of their remit was then to go and find a employment support partner. And I got the email. I thought, why are they emailing me? I'm a one-woman show. I've got no resource to throw at this. We're in the middle of apocalypse. No one's recruiting. I don't have jobs on my board, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't even bother to write back. And then I got a call from the guy who emailed me saying, is there something you can do? I said, it's really close to my heart. I mean, homelessness is for everyone. It's everywhere. We see it everywhere. But I've got no money. Like I can't, and I've got no resource for this. And he kind of sort of accepted that. And then it was a Friday that I spoke to him. It was a beautiful sunny Friday because I was drinking a lovely cider at the time. That's why I remember it. And I just couldn't get
an exceptional summer. Let's be honest.
It was gorgeous. It was the only thing I think that kept us sane, wasn't it?
Yeah. We should not complain about the current weather because we had an extraordinary 6 months of weather.
It was beautiful. Yeah. So I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, I felt really compelled to do something about it, and I thought, well, bugger it. Like, what's it going to hurt if I put together a proposal and send it their way? They can say no, or they can say yes, or maybe whatever. So I whipped up a proposal because what I knew was that they would need a really aggressive, quite bold approach, and that old school charity, jobs brokerage, employment support service model wasn't going to work in the current climate. And so I said that in the proposal, and I said, if you give me this much money, I can get 2 gun recruiters and someone to administer the project and a little bit of PR help to promote it. And
this is when you started stealing everybody I knew, like Glenn and Melanie.
Yeah. So I sent it off, and it got approved. So it's a Greater London Authority project. So it's a government-funded project. And essentially what we've been tasked to do is work alongside the amazing charity St. Mungo's to support 100 men and women who have no recourse to public funds, but the right to work here into jobs that they love. And our role in all of that was really to build relationships with employers who wanted to translate their commitment to either CSR or D&I into sort of practice that would mean they could sort of hire from our talent pool. And part of that, I had 3 weeks to recruit and mobilise a team. Cue Glenn, 33% of the Beardy brothers. So I recruited Glenn, who leads on the project and is sort of.
So there's Glenn Lee, and I don't think Melanie has a beard. I've lost. Who have I lost? Who's the third one?
Well, Chris. So Chris was one of my radicals, and he's come on board to help with sort of the pre-work support. Okay. So I've got 3 Beardy brothers and Silverman Melanie 99 or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And
she's in the book.
Yeah. So we advertised for like 3 days on LinkedIn. I had a load of interest from just the most amazing people who really bought into the mission. And choosing sort of the second and third members of the team was really challenging. But I've done a really good job of picking and with Glenn's help. And so now we're sort of a little radical pot of recruiters, aren't we?
Pot of people. So you've got these amazing 100 people that you're endeavouring to get into work in 100 days.
Yeah.
Which is obviously like pushing poo uphill in a pandemic. But the employers who have been really open to this, what's the benefit to them of being part of this? I mean, forget checkbox CSR, like really, what are they seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I say this constantly. I mean, the guys that we're working with, surprisingly, I was forced to check my unconscious bias, because when I went to sites for the first time, I had in my head, and it's a shameful thing, and I will admit it and it won't ever happen again, but in my head, I was expecting disheveled, disenfranchised, hopeless people that didn't have, any work experience, that couldn't speak a word of English, I mean, all of the things that we see in the movies and things like that. And it doesn't happen very often, but it totally happened to me on this occasion. And when I got there, I met, with the exception of 1 or 2 guys who were probably not very well, they were all super engaged. They were all desperately wanting our support. Most of them had very extensive work histories and had worked up to the lockdown, albeit often in informal positions. And they were work ready. You know, they looked the part. They turned up on time. You know, some of them were very likable. You know, all of these things. So I guess the thing that I
guess that's where the scary comes in, doesn't it? Because it's not actually, they have got some career history. They are work ready. They're not like, I do think we all have this perception.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some people that
are, or they're never going to turn up on time or whatever. I do think we just, whether we like it or not, it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, that perception is true of a very small proportion of people that we label homeless. And actually, the definition of homelessness encompasses more than rough sleepers. So you can be in a hostel and be homeless. You can be in an Airbnb and be homeless. You can be sofa surfing or living in your friend's home and be homeless. There's 230,000 people who are homeless in the UK, and that's the best estimate pre-lockdown. You know, no one, when we talk about homelessness, no one thinks that care leaver who doesn't have parents, who's been through a broken, shitty system that's totally failed them, that's on the streets. We don't, you know, homelessness since lockdown, the prevalence of it amongst 18 to 25-year-olds has risen by 81%. So a good proportion of the homeless population are actually young people who, you know, you couldn't possibly say choose drugs and a life of homelessness. I mean, it's just like this, the way we rationalize homelessness and our lack of empathy and action as a society is quite, I mean, it's absurd and it's really bizarre to me, but we do it. I guess it's easy to put people in boxes and you have to deal with them.
I think
so. Yeah, the thing that sets our candidates apart, they have tremendous resilience. They have huge amounts of grit. They're really self-determined, because the alternative is that they stay on the streets. And no one wants to do that in the middle of winter in London. It's really bloody cold out there. You'd be mad not to want to work and pay your own way.
Gotcha. Is that the same that you've found, Glenn, now that you're, because this is the first time that you've helped with something like this? Has it been a little eye-opening?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to Emma's point around the sort of stereotypes. I mean, what we found were individuals that had just had a couple of bad decisions circumstantially. So i.e. they've left their own accommodation, moved in with a girlfriend, broke up with a girlfriend, lost a job pre-pandemic, and suddenly they find themselves homeless. And it's just kind of circumstance. It's not like, you know, not even that path of kind of drug related, and then they find themselves on the streets. So it was a learning, I think, for all of, well, certainly for me, just in terms of the individuals you're kind of encountering, you know?
Yeah. I mean, none of the guys.
There's a lovely comment here, by the way. Oh, it doesn't show fully. How annoying. This is, I looked it on my phone. I'm hopefully pronouncing this correctly. Sade. Emma and Glenn, wow, what an amazing true life story. Can relate to having experienced homelessness. It's not easygoing. Love what you were doing. I don't know why it doesn't show fully. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I think there's one thing that Emma probably kind of skipped over slightly, because she is very modest, is the fact that this particular project, the Radical Futures project, was really a proof of concept. St Mungo's and the funder hadn't really attempted anything like this before, so it was kind of, there was no expectation that we would be super successful. It was just kind of let's see if this can work. And actually, with as you said, the other bearded brother, Lee Thomas Ragg, loving Lee.
Yeah, I mean, could we have a better recruiting colleague for a project like this in particular?
He is chief of joy, is Lee. He's just
an exceptional. He connects with people on all the levels and so quickly. He's brilliant.
So it's I think it's if anything, this particular project is proving that with the right kind of dynamics of teams and the right drive, this can be achieved. So this is, you know, this is something that could scale, definitely.
Yeah. So can we go back to the employer thing? Because I'm still trying to ascertain what's in it for them, because that's all they're thinking.
Yeah.
When it's a risky time, some of them are concerned about recruiting full stop. Like the people who have engaged with you, like what are they seeing as the benefits? You are placing people. I'm seeing these updates and feeling the excitement as you put people in new roles, which is so cool. So the people that have engaged, what's been the benefit?
I mean, I think that the key difference between a radical recruit candidate and any other candidate represented by an agency recruiter is that we have put them through an incredibly rigorous risk and work readiness assessment. And and we test motivation over a period of time in lots of different ways, which means that our employers don't have to take candidates on face value. So we ask questions like, has drugs and alcohol currently, or have they ever been a big part of your life? We ask it in a way that means it's safe to say yes or no. And if they say yes, our response is always, well, we can't work with you now, but let's help you get some support so that drugs and alcohol are no longer a big part of your life. Whereas a candidate can walk in off the street into your Reed, your Office Angels, or whatever, and those questions aren't asked, are they? They don't care, and why should they? They're not the same type of recruiters. But the reality is that it may be that the answer would be yes if the question was asked. So that recruiter is then
sure that Glenn and I could have asked several of our ex-colleagues and that would have been a yes, and they were fully working.
I mean, we know what recruiters get up to. I mean,
we do.
Candidates can't, even if they were just as bad. I mean, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I think what employers get when they partner with us is sort of more protection on their investment because they know who they're meeting, truly who they're meeting, not who they think they're meeting. And the other thing, I guess, is that, we teach people we get them ready to compete in open recruitment processes. So our candidates aren't being given jobs out of charity. They still have to interview. They still have to submit a decent CV, get through ATS. They still have to, be able to prove their competency in an interview. They get vetted in the same way. There are no exceptions. We don't ask for any modifications to recruitment practice or policy. And then when the candidate gets a job, they get the job because they're the best candidate at the end of the race. The difference, I guess, again, is that we support our candidates to start well and to sustain their employment. So when shit hits the fan, they're not, something happens at work. Often it's bad people management. It's more that than it is actually radicals not turning up or not doing a good job. Then we can advocate for them. We can give them a steer in terms of, read the policy, understand what your rights are. This is the language I suggest you use when you're talking to your manager in these situations. If it's often I'll go back to the HR lead that I set up the relationship with and say, hey, this person's being managed retrospectively, and actually I don't think the remit of this person's role has been made clear, or they're deviating from the original plan, whatever it is. And then they can go in and do their job as HR people to support their hiring manager. So I think you get really determined, sort of resilient individuals who are diverse in terms of the way they think and the way they do things. That's the first reason why people partner with us. Second is it's diverse staffing groups is a huge body of evidence to prove that diversity affects your bottom line. It drives business success. Diverse teams relate better to customers. So all of these things businesses say they care about, but the businesses who are actually recruiting and diversifying their recruitment strategy or the pipelines in this way are reaping the rewards. From a PR perspective, it's really great to be able to say you are giving back to the community that you operate in. I mean, what's not to like about that? So they're sort of
actually just perfectly on that, by the way, just perfectly timed comment to go with what you just said, which is also a nice lead into something else. So Sade said, thank you. Yes, I pronounced your name correctly. Yay, that would be a first. My Australian accent. I'm sure you have the same problem, Emma. But would love to support your radical project. So I'll have to make sure you two connect after the show as well. But speaking of supporting your radical project and seeing we've talked about the benefits to employers of doing this, what's coming up? Haven't you got something coming up where you need us to dip our hands into our pockets and
I do.
put some dough in the pot?
Yeah, I had this moment in the shower the other day. I do a lot of thinking in the shower. And
by the way, that's a proven thing. The hot water on the top of your head makes you more creative.
there you
And
go.
if you go to Amazon, you can get aqua notes, which you can actually stick on the tiles and actually write notes.
There you go. So I'm not just some weirdo who does things about my colleagues.
No, most of us are our best either walking or in the shower. It's to do with the hot water on your head. Random fact that I'm just adding to the conversation for no reason.
You know it either, Katrina, because you're full of random useful facts.
No, I got that aqua notes from Perry Timms, so you blame him for that one.
So we've got this funding. It's been extended again, which is amazing, until the 16th of November. So just to give you an idea of the volume of work we've got sort of in the pipeline.
Only 17 days away.
No, December, sorry. I meant December, not November. Apologies.
Oh, okay.
I'm wishing the year away. I logged onto this call an hour early, Glenn.
Yes, you did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got a panicked message like, where are you?
Yeah.
I'll be there in an hour.
You idiot. Sorry, I've got other fine qualities.
I didn't say that.
At least I was early. I could be an hour late. So I don't know what you're poking fun at me for, young lady. Yeah, so we've got like, at the moment, we've got around 200 applications out for just shy of, I think, 50 candidates who are all from this rough sleeper group. And we're also running the usual business sort of with our core radicals in the background. That's why don't know what time it is or what day it is. And, more than 50% of those, I think almost all of them are guaranteed interviews because they all meet the minimum threshold, and we've got some great employers sort of in the mix who are committing to providing people opportunities to interview. So what was the question? I can't remember what I was answering. Sorry. Oh, that's
you need us to put our hands in our pockets.
Yeah. So we've got all this work, really good work happening, and I think that'll sort of take us up to November, and we're pretty confident that we'll probably I don't want to say it out loud, and I've got no wood to touch, but we'll place a good few of these.
I'll do it. I've got a big wooden table right here.
Which is amazing, but there's like so many other people that we could be helping, and the reality of COVID and its fallout is that the people that we represent at Radical have been disproportionately affected, and they are even worse off than everyone else who's been impacted. I know it's touched everyone's lives, but these people their situations are really dire. So we've got this model that we've proved.
Well, I think no recourse to public funds is like a huge thing. That the fact that they can't get help.
Yeah, exactly. And there's hundreds of those in the UK, and so we've got this model that we know works despite the apocalypse. We've got this amazing kick-ass crack team of recruiters and male marketers, and it's all working really well. But after the 16th of December, the money in the pot for those people who are doing such amazing, important work sort of stops. So I'm having to ask for help. And I guess we're about to launch a crowdfunding campaign. It's a little bit different to most crowdfunding campaigns in the sense that we believe in mutual exchange at Radical, and that we're not asking for something for nothing. So we're looking to partner with corporates who have D&I and CSR commitments to make, and in return for their pledges, we will tailor-make a bundle of rewards comprised of things like diversity, equality, inclusion, belonging training, recruitment services, access to our D&I jobs board, corporate volunteering, impact reports, so you can talk about how your money's being spent and what impact it had at the end of the year with your AGM or your annual report. These types of things, case studies, brand alignment, all of that stuff. We're going to bundle it together, so it's tailor-made for our donors, so that we can work with you over the next year and really help you bolster and prop up your existing CSR strategies, or help you develop them if you don't have them. And using that money, what we're going to do is support a big group of people off the streets and into jobs that they love, and make sure that they stay in them and they're able to progress their careers. yeah, so that's
so you can really change people's lives. And I heard something about the Guardian as well. What was that all about?
Yeah, Guardian Jobs are our official partner. So they're looking at the moment.
Was that a Silverman 99? Silverman Melanie 99?
Yeah, Mel, she's a real hustler, Mel, and she's very hard to say no to, trust me. Do you know what? Bless her, she's such a sweetheart. She cries at most of my LinkedIn posts, the sad ones anyway, and probably the happy ones. If I
tried to make you cry, and I didn't make you cry. She was sobbing at the thought I'd sent you some tablets. And you didn't even, you were like, yeah, whatever. I think you sent some. I'm not sure, actually. Oh, yeah, maybe I've got them.
Well, if you put your name on it.
It was really great, though. It was so good, though. I got, after finally getting paid by this client, they overpaid me 100 quid. So I went, I know what I'll do with them. Emma was always needing tablets. Paid it forward.
Yeah, no, it was great.
You were like, whatever.
No, I wasn't. I was incredibly, eternally grateful. And in fact, Chanel, who I spoke about earlier, she's just received one of your tablets. So, she's hers died and she was in dire need, and I couldn't think of a more deserving person.
She does appreciate anybody who's got a fair ability to send her a tablet, because it gives the people you're helping access to the internet. Like,
and it's because of the plague, we've had to. Yeah, we've had to move everything online. So if they don't have access to tech, they can't access our services. But it's also like, I think lots of people have felt really lonely during this time. If you ask any care leaver who's being moved into their own accommodation, they live by themselves. They don't have mum and dad. They don't have family. Yeah. Their friendships are generally quite limited. If you're not working, you've got nothing meaningful to do with your time. It's an incredibly isolating life. So having, and that's the beautiful thing about what we do. We get people ready to move into land market and we find them great jobs, but there's this beautiful community of humans. And you were one of the first ones, Katrina, who genuinely give a shit about people and who pull their time and their resources together to make things happen for people who need opportunities and who are incredibly grateful for the support that you guys give. So, can we just say
that only happened because of Rob Marsh, who was also another one of those incredible, generous humans at Reward Gateway who connected us.
Yeah, he connected us, but also they funded the business. So we got the grant from Reward Gateway. RG Foundation. On like a week before lockdown happened. And it's the only reason I've been able to keep it afloat. And in fact, Doug Butler has just committed a huge amount of money to a new grant funding stream for projects that are serving the BIPOC or BAME community. You need to get nominated from someone in RG, but they're lovely people. So ask if you're doing amazing work.
They're incredible, aren't they?
And they are really good.
A huge supporter of my favourite charity as well, like Hope for Justice. And
Yeah. So I don't know what we're talking about, but it's been
crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding. So we're going to do.
So talk about what's going on with the Guardian Jobs. So what specifically are they going to do? They're going to help visibility.
Yeah. So they've done some social about us. They're going to write to their Guardian Jobs clients and send them the link to our crowdfunding campaign. I mean, we're we have been a social value partner for lots and lots of businesses over the last 12 months. But we're now in a position where actually we can't afford to keep doing the work for free. And the value proposition we offer to the business community is significant.
Gotcha.
So we're asking people to just reach into we don't need a lot of money either. I think it costs less than $2,000 to put a person into work on average. And we're not paying ourselves exorbitant amounts of money. So everything goes back into the business and making things happen for our radicals. So we don't need a lot. I mean, we're sort of aiming to raise 150,000, and that'll get over 150 people into work and also provide post-work services to people we place. That's
incredible.
There'll be hundreds of other people who get CV support, who get interview prep, who get coaching, mentoring. We've got this amazing partnership with Leap Psychological Services. They provide pro bono and talking therapy and CBT. So no NHS waitlist for some pretty vulnerable people. So there's lots of stuff happening.
So who is that? Sorry, that's
Leap Psychological Services.
wow.
So they're based in Scotland. They do everything online for us, and the wait list is about 2 weeks. And they've been doing that for a year. But I'm like, people sometimes they just need a little bit of talking to get to the point where they're work ready. Or if they're in a really bad situation, we can't work with them. That's one way that we can support, so that when they're ready and they're in a better position.
That's
we can
so amazing of them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the corporate world has huge power to really affect massive lasting change. And it's not always about investing money. I mean, we all need money, especially the small charities, because we've still been going.
But there is money there. I mean, you look how fast there is money there. If you look at how fast, Bozo decides not to feed children, and then boom, all of a sudden, everybody's reached into their pockets to come up with different ways that the children can be fed. So there is money there. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I would never advocate.
What are you calling it? An apocalypse?
Yeah, even in your plague, the apocalypse. I mean, it's a bitch of a thing, isn't it?
There'll be locusts coming through London any minute now.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing, and it's terrifying.
So when's it launching? Because everyone's like going, we want to.
Good question. We've had to push it back another week or so because we're just ironing out a few things. The tricky thing with crowdfunding is you've got to have momentum from the beginning and keep it up. Otherwise, it's generally a massive flop. And crowdfunding doesn't. You've got to do a whole load of work. So, anyone who knows Glenn or Lee or Mel, expect a phone call. Because we're going to be working the phones, and our circle of sort of first tier connections, whatever you want to call yourselves, and then we'll be doing lots of big push around telling the stories of our radicals on social. Our friends at The Guardian are going to help us do that. We've got some amazing corporates who are we're negotiating pledges and membership to our services for. So there's hopefully you're going to be inundated with good news stories about our radicals and feel the need to get involved and help us any way you can. Really.
I don't think you'll have any problem.
Oh, I really hope not, but it's terrifying doing this sort of thing. Really scary.
But just look how far you've come in. Look at what you've already achieved in 12 months from, sitting there with that glass of wine going, yeah, you know what, I need to do something. And look what you've done in 12 months.
Yeah, it's been it's a real privilege and an honor to do this sort of work. I meet some amazing people. I work with amazing people. Yeah.
But it's your drive. I mean, it's your mission. You're on it. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, we've got big, ambitious plans for the future, so stay tuned.
Oh, I can only imagine. Glenn's gone really quiet over there.
No, I mean, I working with them, I kind of know what drives her, and I'm continually impressed by the energy and drive that she's got. And I think, to your point, Katrina, there is perhaps a perception that the government services will support these individuals, and illustrative of Boris Johnson's decision when they remove those support services, people don't just gradually fall into a challenging state. It's rapid. It's almost overnight. And Radical Recruit is definitely illustrating that kind of collective mindset of people wanting to make a difference. It can genuinely make a real difference and real, actual, tangible results, not just a kind of.
And interestingly, if you do vote with your purse in mind, the cost to the taxpayer over a year to leave someone on the streets is just over £18,000. Now, we can support someone into work who will then subsequently pay taxes into the public purse that they had previously taken money from for less than $2,000. And it's like, if you look at, we've got one candidate who was surrendered into the care of the state. This is 50 years ago now, 47 years ago. I'm not sure how old he is.
Such a lovely expression, isn't it? Surrendered into the care of the state.
So he was in care until he was old enough to go to prison. And for the last 30 years, he's been in prison or homeless. And by homeless, I mean living in tents in forests or whatever you call them over here. I call them bush back home. It's forest, isn't it? And or sleeping in his, piece of shit car, if I'm honest, that's cold and leaky and awful, getting into fights, in and out of prison. He reckons he's been in prison for around 10 years out of that 30. So the cost of homeless, say, if you say round it up to £20,000 a year, and he was homeless for 20 years, what's that, 400K? Is that, my maths is terrible. And then I think the cost of a prison cell is around 35,000 a year. So that's 350,000. So this, over the course of his adult life, this man's cost us, taxpayers, people who don't, have different sort of ideas about homelessness and ex-offenders, just shy of $1 million. And then if you look at the cost of a placement in care, that's again, I think around 35,000K. So you're looking at the best part of $2 million to keep this man alive, but not a good life either. It's a crappy life. It's a life where he's
and a life he probably doesn't want either.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like if you had no regard for that particular human that I'm talking about, think about like community cohesion and safety, and like the burden that people like him in en masse place on the NHS. There's all these really compelling reasons to just solve homelessness and to give people who have made mistakes a chance to be better. And anyone who says that it's not possible, we've just proven it is with the most complex of people who have never ever received support. So up your bum to them people, and
absolutely,
and like get involved, everyone. It's everyone's issue,
So we have a couple of comments here just to spur you on again. I don't know why the comments don't show in full. This actually says this is Asil Ibrahim. This is such inspiring. Oh, it moved stuff. As an agency recruiter, it's amazing to hear about the work you do. Restores my faith in the concept of recruitment as a force for positive change. And Shada has also written. We need more people that bring humanity back into the world who are also beautiful. Good luck with the corporates. Debbie complaining about the time change. And I think this will be Sade again. Hi, Debbie, belatedly. We probably pay the government to feast on lavish dining more than 18K per year.
But they do. They get
those are rejected. I know. God.
Yeah, I think I was reading that they get like 14,000 in just meal allowance every year. These MPs. It's like, how is this possible?
Did you see the list of how much they could deduct? And I was like, the 100 that voted against. At least the guy on the bottom had deducted nothing. But he'd still be humiliated as hell to be, surely. But they don't seem to be.
They don't seem to be.
Anyway,
let's not go there.
Thank God we have the likes of you out there, just deciding to make a change and getting on and doing it. And then just creating this thing. You were the drop. I say this about Ian Pettigrew when I talk about what he did with us with the Hope for Justice. You're like the drop. You've started this ripple and you've got all these people in the waves with you, all determined to do something. So
it honestly doesn't have to be hard though, and it's like a small investment in a organization like ours can go such a long way. And I think more and more organizations like ours are giving back to their investors. It's no longer sort of a hand up for the poor lowly people. We're not about that at Radical. We want sort of a mutually beneficial partnership where everyone sort of benefits, and we're savvy enough to create services and things like that will help your business in lots of different ways.
So if people want to find you, you have a quite unusual name, so I imagine just plugging that into LinkedIn at work, but it's also what's the website?
www.radicalrecruit.co.uk. But actually, if you want up-to-date content and you want to follow our work and you want to hear from the Beardy Brothers and read all the recent news about what we do and all that stuff, follow our LinkedIn page, please. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, but I think the most relevant content is being pushed out on LinkedIn. Radical Recruit on LinkedIn.
Radical Recruit. Easy. Emma, thank you as ever. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for all of your comments. You're most welcome. Next week Chris Raw. I just went blank. I'm like, Chris, what's Chris's surname? I've forgotten. We're going to really randomly going from this kind of a conversation to chatbots, but but communicating really and the use of language. Actually, it would be quite a cool show as well. Emma, thank you as ever, and of course we wouldn't be here without Enterprise alumni. Of course we wouldn't have heard anything without them helping us be here to give you a platform to speak. So go follow Radical Recruit and look out for that campaign, and dip in your pocket, people.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Good way to end it.
Good way to end it.
Okay, yeah. Priya, put your